Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another live today. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about qualification, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ABQ method, always be qualifying. We've heard of ABC, which I hope you guys are not doing. ABC is always be closing. And if we take care of the qualification and the discovery, the close will be a lot easier and it'll probably take care of itself. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Leah Borges. I'm a sales advisor and coach for top tier AEs and sales teams. And I help them when they are frustrated with inconsistent close rates, discovery call outcomes, and inconsistent quota attainment. The last 10 A's that I have coached, I have helped them increase their close rate by at least 25%, sometimes more. If this is something that you are wanting to achieve for yourself or you want to have a discussion about it, please do DM me here on LinkedIn so we can have that conversation. Okay, let's get right into it. So we are talking about the ABQ method, always be qualifying. And we spend a lot of time on getting leads into the top of the funnel, right? Which is understandable. And today, the hot topic is, it has been for the entire year, with close rates dropping and middle of the funnel kind of iffy sometimes. The hot topic this year has been lead generation and getting more leads into the top of the funnel, which is understandable. So we're spending a lot of time, we're spending a lot of money, and we're spending a lot of effort on that top of funnel lead generation. And I see a lot of SDRs who are fabulous at their jobs. They're working really hard. They're getting a lot of leads into the top of the funnel. They're testing different things. Shout out to Oliver Johnson because he's one of the best at this. At getting leads into the top of the funnel and kind of sharing what he's doing. So shout out to him. And also Kevin Chambers, who I have worked with extensively. He's really great at top of funnel lead generation, getting that whole thing going. If you're not following those guys, please do follow those two guys. So anyway, we're spending a lot of time, money, and effort on getting leads into the top of the funnel. Understandable, right? Because we have to have leads to work with. But then when we get to the qualification point, we are kind of rushing through it. We're rushing through qualification, rushing things into the middle of the funnel, when actually we need to kind of step back and put the brakes on a little bit and assess if those leads that we're getting are really qualified, right? We're rushing because we want to, as AEs, we want to get to the presentation or we want to get to the demo and then we want to get to the close, right? And that's the name of the game. We want to close more, but we're doing the counterintuitive thing. So we're rushing through the qualification so that we can get there. But then sometimes when we get there, we realize after a couple of conversations, the lead is not really qualified and it's not really going anywhere. So we want to keep that from happening. Hence, ABQ, the always be qualifying method. Speed is not momentum. Okay, I want you guys to let that sink in. Speed is not momentum. It's simply moving things through the funnel quicker, which can sometimes run counter to what you want your outcome to be or what you're trying to achieve, right? Our job is to not get as many leads as possible and rush them through. And our job is not to close every lead, right? Because every lead is not really closable. It has to be qualified to be closable. And that's why we don't want to rush through this process, right? We're getting excited about the potential and we're not really focused on the actual reality of what's going on inside that opportunity, inside that deal, or with that particular buyer. So 3 tips that we need to do when we are assessing if a lead or a buyer is qualified or not. And I want you guys to really let this sink in, and we need to slow down the process, right? Because again, we're bringing all these leads into the top of the funnel. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort and energy to do that. So when we get them, we don't want to blow them up, and we want to make sure that they're quality and that as we move them along in the sales process, that it's going to lead to an outcome, both for the client, for the buyer, and ourselves. So number 1, you want to slow down. We're going to slow down. We're going to ask the questions that we need to ask. And then kind of in our brain, we're going to kind of assess, okay, is this qualified to go to the next step? We're not just rushing through it. Qualification is not BANT either. It's not budget, authority, need, and timing. Okay, it's not that. So I hope you guys are not using BANT, but if you are, please drop it, because for other reasons that I can't go into on this live because it's too lengthy, and I'll do it another time. Budget is not the qualifier that we think it is. Authority is not the qualifier that we think it is. Need and timing are not the qualifiers that we have made them to be, especially in our CRM, especially how we've been taught. We're misusing it. But anyway, I sidetracked. So we want to slow down. We want to kind of assess, is this lead qualified to go to the next step, whether that's talking in a discovery call, whether that is doing a demo or presentation. We want to assess the lead and see if it's actually qualified. We're going to qualify it at every stage. So one of the things that I used to talk about, and I had talked about this a couple years ago in another video, is that we want to qualify at every single stage. So one of the hallmarks of a lead that we, or an opportunity, how we can assess, one of the things you want to ask yourself is the buyer still on the journey? And it doesn't matter if they are, what stage of the opportunity we're in. It doesn't matter if we're in the prospect, the qualification stage, if we're in the discovery, the demo, what have you. We always want to ask ourselves, is this buyer still on the journey for whatever reason with us to explore the possibilities? Okay, so that's an overarching question that you should always ask yourself when you're working with a buyer, when you're working on a deal or opportunity in your CRM. Is this buyer still on the journey? And if they're not, can I get them back on track? And if they dropped off and they're just ghosting or what have you, or they're just no longer engaged, do I need to cut this deal loose, or is there something I can do to pull them back? Okay. And then the third part is, when you decide to disqualify with confidence. Okay. And I say this because a lot of times as AEs, as sellers, we are really hesitant to kill a deal. We're really hesitant to close lost it and put the actual reason. We don't want to do that because we feel like it reflects badly on us. We're supposed to close as many deals as possible, et cetera, et cetera. Every deal is not closable. And sometimes you can save yourself a lot of time, energy, and headspace by cutting a deal loose when you need to. Now, it doesn't mean you can't revive that deal later if the circumstances warrant, but be able to disqualify with confidence. And this does not mean, like I've heard it say, qualify quick and disqualify faster. That's kind of BS, okay? We don't want to disqualify too fast, but by the same token, we don't want to disqualify too slowly either, right? So there's a balance depending on your buyer, depending on your product, solution, or service. Like sometimes I know that I can be a little bit quick to pull the trigger, right? I'm a little quick to disqualify it, but then I kind of have to slow it down and ask myself, like, what is the buyer actually saying? Is there some way that I can pivot? Is there some way I can reframe this conversation to get more information? And this may require you, when we're talking about point 3, disqualifying with confidence, it may take a while and it may require you as the seller to be a little bit brave, okay? And by that, I mean, you may need to ask some tough questions, okay? One of the questions that you can ask, or one of the questions that I like to ask, like if I sense some hesitation or if there's been some time between calls or what have you, I will ask them and say, hey, you know what? I remember I was thinking about our conversation, thinking about you. And I just wondered, after I outlined a little bit of the conversation, is this a now thing or is this a later thing for you? Or are there other priorities, right? So we're getting more information. We're being a little more brave. We're being a little upfront, right? We're kind of speaking the unsaid, which is a lot of times what we don't do because we're afraid that we'll turn our buyer off, or we're afraid that maybe we're being too forward or what have you. But in my experience, buyers can take you being upfront and forward as long as they have context, right? So you just don't want to shoot off an email, oh, is this a now thing or is it a later thing, right? You want to give them a little context, talk a little bit about your conversation about the problems that you uncovered, and then you can ask, hey, I know this has been a while. Is this a now thing or is this a later thing? Are there other priorities, right? So it does require you to be a little bit more brave. And as AEs, I think we do have to stop this beating around the bush and dancing around the subject, right? We have to be a little bit more forward and straightforward and upfront about the information that we need to have. But again, We're going to, exercise our EQ, and we are going to give them context as to why we're asking this. And we're actually giving them, if you think about it, we're giving them an easy out. We're giving them an easy answer, right? They can just say, hey, there's other priorities. I have this on my plate, that on my plate, and then you can have that conversation. Or, you know what, I'm really sorry. I was really busy. I sidetracked with XYZ, because they do have other stuff going on. And then we need to honor that and just say, okay, I understand that you were busy with other things. When's a good time for us to reopen this conversation, right? So that's kind of what it looks like. And this is all part of the qualification process. If you feel like you need to disqualify, you may need to be brave and ask a bold forward question and then get the answer. And it's not easy, and I get it. It's easier for me because that's just my personality. That's how I am. But for some people, it may not be easy. It's something that you need to practice. But understand that by doing that, you'll get the answers that you need instead of like making all these inferences and assumptions and kind of leaving things hanging in the air and leaving things hanging unsaid, right? Again, give context to why you're asking some of the things that you're asking. Okay, so when we're talking about ABQ, we always want to be qualifying the buyer's motives, the problems, the stake they have in the deal or the problem that you're solving, and how ready they are to move forward with a possible solution. Again, we're asking ourselves, is the buyer still on the journey and for what reason? Okay, and this information should always be logged in your CRM, or at least have it written down for yourself. Now, I'm a big proponent of using the CRM, and a lot of AEs don't really use the CRM to its fullest potential because it doesn't help them. And also because we're not getting any coaching and we're not understanding how having that information in the CRM is going to help us for this op or for later deals, right? If that's something that you have run up against, then let me know, send me a DM. We can talk about how to structure your CRM and how to structure all your deals so that you're getting the information you need each and every time and it's consistent and it's going to help you close more. Okay, so let's go back. So not just on the first call, every email, every interaction, we need to be assessing, is this buyer still on the journey? Why or why not? What other information do I need to get to make sure that this deal is qualified? Okay, 4 things, I'm going to give you 4 things that you need to always be assessing when you're talking about qualifying, okay? And here's a great acronym that you can remember, and I want you to write this down, please, that you can remember that will help you in your qualification when you're qualifying. So ABQ qualifying. So it's PICT, PICT. You're qualifying the problem. Is it big enough? Have I identified it? Do I have agreement that that problem is big enough? It's the one that needs to be solved and it's the one that has priority. Do I understand the impact of the problem of that issue on the client's business? Do I understand, is it quantified and is it large enough? And remember, when we're talking about cost of inaction, or we're talking about the cost of staying the same, the problem should be 3 to 4 times in cost of your product, solution, or service. If it's only 1 time or 2 times, it's not going to have the urgency. So it's probably going to be one of those deals that's going to push, and you're not going to know why, but that is why. So problem, impact, have I quantified it? Have I identified it? Do I have my champion, my real champion? Am I talking to them? Am I talking to their priorities? Am I talking to what does it mean for them? Am I tapping into that emotional piece of why they would want to go forward with this? So PIC. And then T, the timing. Is this a now thing or is this a later thing? Is there something else taking precedence? Is this likely to push through to fruition? Or is it one of those things where, hey, I can take it or leave it? It can happen now or in the future. Is there some kind of urgency? So PICT, PICT, problem, impact, champion, and timing. Those are the 4 things that you always want to be qualifying for, always throughout the deal. And you need to be having this in your notes in the CRM because it will keep you on track. And then it will signal you to ask more questions or ask more challenging questions if and when that time comes and it arises. Okay. So our job as AEs, it is not to keep every single deal alive. It isn't. Some deals need to die. And when I look at AE's pipeline, or when I look at the pipeline of an organization, one of the things that we're looking for is to see, are all those deals qualified? Are they real? And if they are real, why are they stalled? And what's missing within the opportunity, right? And this normally happens. We see a lot of bloated pipelines, a lot of pipelines that are going nowhere. This often happens when there's no qualification checklist at every stage of the opportunity in the CRM. Okay, so when we're talking about the stages in the CRM, right, we're talking about maybe you have a pre-qualify, you have a prospect, you have, and these are the stages in your CRM: pre-qualify, prospect. You might have the discovery call, the demo or presentation. If you're in manufacturing, it's presentation. If you're in SaaS or tech, it's demo, proposal, recommendation, and then close, right? So each one of those stages in the CRM should have at least 3 to 4 qualifiers to be before you move it to the next stage. So it's your qualifying checklist. And I'll do another live probably next week where I demonstrate this on a whiteboard and show you exactly what it should look like. But every stage in the CRM needs to have a qualifying checklist where those things are present or checked off. And I hate that word, checked off, but anyway, where those things are present, and then you assess if you're moving it to the next stage. If 2 out of those things aren't present, then we need to go back and we need to ask some clarifying questions, some more qualifying questions in order to qualify it to move it to the next stage, right? And this, again, this requires us to pump the brakes and slow down when we are in conversations with our buyer, and slow down on the qualification, okay? By the time you get the deal, if you're doing full cycle, you should be cognizant of this. If you are getting your discovery calls or leads through an SDR, you need to teach them this part of it. This is the other thing that I see a lot, right? I am coaching a couple of AEs right now. They work with an SDR, and the SDR is on a completely different page. And by the time they get the deal, a lot of times, like half of those deals are not even qualified. So it's a waste of time and resources, right? Because if you think about it, the organization is paying the SDR and sales leaders, please, I'm talking to you also. You're paying, SDRs are being paid to generate these leads. And if 50, 60, 70% of those new leads are not qualified, not only is the SDR's time wasted, but then your AE's time, or you as the AE, your time is also wasted because your time is finite, right? And you want to spend your time with highly qualified deals. Now, it's possible that it's not qualified fully when you get it from the SDR, but then it's your job to slow down and decide, is this actually qualified once you go through your qualifying checklist, and once you go through all the questions and you have all the information, right? Yes, this is qualified to go to the next step, or it's not, or let me ask some other clarifying questions to determine if I can push it to the next stage, or to determine if there's something that I missed, or if there's more urgency than I originally thought, or maybe it's not qualified, maybe I just need to cut it loose, okay? So again, when we're qualifying, we need to slow it down. We need to pump the brakes, stop rushing through, stop trying to put everything through your CRM and generate as much, revenue as possible, because when that happens, then you're clogging up your pipeline with at least 50%, 60, 70% unqualified deals, and you're wasting your time when it comes to the discovery call, when it comes to doing your presentation, when it comes to, doing the recommendation and all of this. So we're always be qualifying. There's 3 things that you want to do, and then there's that 4-step acronym that we are always qualifying for, PICT, P-I-C-T. And I'll put this in the newsletter later, but that's what we want to do when we're qualifying. That's what it means to always be qualifying. Always be ABC is dead. Always be closing is dead, because we need to be qualifying in order to make the close happen, in order to have a higher probability to close that deal, okay? So if this has helped you, please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. If this is something that you want to get better at, I am, like, not to toot my own horn, but I am a whiz when it comes to discovery and qualification. So if this is something that you need better results with, then please DM me. Let's have that conversation. I do coach sales teams and I coach AEs one-to-one, and I can work on helping you get similar results, 25% increase in those close rates. Okay. So I will see you next time. And remember, always be qualifying, and ABC, always be closing, is dead. I will talk to you next time. Until then, happy selling and have a great Thanksgiving week. Bye.